Take a person, take a story, take you on a journey. It's your take. On today's Your Take, I'm joined by a young Welsh guitar wizard who was highly inspired by 1950s rock and roll, country and blues music. He started learning guitar at 13 and was listening to all sorts of music, from Dave Edmunds to Chuck Berry to Elmore James and Albert Lee. My guest has been gigging and earning money as a musician for several years now. His music is featured on the BBC Radio 2 Blues Show with Cerys Matthews. He's toured several countries, won the Emerging Artist of the Year at the UK Blues Awards in 2020, and released his debut album Twang last year. On today's Your Take, I talked to musician James Oliver. We discussed guitars and guitarists, live music, recording, and his musical plans for the future. Nice and early this morning. Thank you kindly for joining me as my guest on Your Take. Good to see you.
How's it going, James? Right, bud?
I'm very well. Yeah, yourself?
Yeah, fine. It's a bit early for me, but that's why I look so white.
I'm very much looking forward to hearing your story today, your kind of career path and how you got into music. But I always start kind of with the same kind of structure. We always go back to the very beginning, the kind of foundations. I kind of wanted to go back to your early years, where you were born and your kind of recollections of childhood. So can you tell me where you were born and just a bit about life growing up in the Oliver household? What was it like?
Well, I was born in 92 in the Gwent in Newport. I've lived in Blackwood all my life, 28 years. I'm only child, it's just me.
Okay.
Because when I was born, see, how could my parents perfect this? No, I'm only joking. I think I put them off kids for life. But yeah, I'm only child. I live with my mother and father. My mother's an English teacher. My father's a JCB driver. Just normal, you know.
Sure. I wanted to ask you about how the whole music thing came about, because I understand you were introduced to kind of roots music and rock and roll from quite an early age, from your father's influence.
Yeah,
I kind of want to find out, which artists you were listening to and how you were kind of listening to the music and what kind of musicians made kind of that long-lasting impression.
Well, my father's into like Fleetwood Mac and Rory Gallagher, Pink Floyd, Eagles, stuff like that. So I was listening to that sort of stuff. But then Rory Gallagher and Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, you know, they do a lot of covers. Like Jeremy Spencer in Fleetwood Mac is a massive Elmore James fan. And, you know, you listen to a song like I Believe My Time Ain't Long and you just go back and think, well, who's that by? And same with Rory Gallagher with stuff like Pistol Slapper Blues is a blind boy full of song, and just go backwards rather than go forwards.
How were you kind of listening to the music at the time? Was it kind of music that your dad had on CD and vinyl, or was it radio mixed in as well? Or
CD? My father hadn't got any vinyl, just CDs really.
I think it's interesting how you mention how kind of music crosses over. I very much kind of agree with you. You can take an old blues song and you can connect that to Chuck Berry, 50s rock and roll. And then obviously you can connect that with the Rolling Stones in the 60s.
Yeah.
Kind of the dots all connect. How did you go from that kind of love of listening to the music to actually thinking, you know, I want to actually start playing guitar? When did that kind of happen? And can you tell us about, you know, your first time you picked up a guitar and how that kind of felt with you?
Well, I thought I'd like to give it a go because I loved all the stuff so much. And I was about 12 or 13 and I went for a guitar lessons with a guy whose name I can't remember, but he told my mother that I'd never be able to do it. so not to bother. And I always remember that. But I can't. I'd like to remember his name, but I can't. And because it was, it was obviously 15 years ago. My mother can't remember either. But
Sure.
and then we had lessons in school. We learned a bit in school. But I was never really in the school bands because they were all playing like Green Day and that. And that just doesn't, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't do it for me. I wanted to play, Rory Gallagher stuff and Peter Green stuff. So
when you initially started playing at school, did it come naturally, or were you someone that it took a long time to kind of master the instrument? And did you have to kind of go away on your own accord and kind of learn for yourself and have that kind of discipline?
Well, I definitely haven't mastered it because you never can, right? That's the first thing. You can never master it, no matter how hard you try. But no, I've had to work really hard on it. Practice all the time. And I wish I practiced more when I was younger. Well, I don't think I practiced enough. That's how I feel now, looking back, that maybe I should have practiced more. But I practice a lot now.
I want to ask you how you went from having this interest in music, then learning to play it at school, and obviously on your own accord. You say, I've heard you say you've learned very much from watching YouTube and other musicians. But how did you go from that to actually start gigging and earning money as a professional musician? And I just wanted to ask you what the music scene was like at the time, and some of the earliest bands you kind of formed kind of when you first started playing music to a live audience.
Well, there's always been a good scene in Wales and Bristol, actually, because of course it's pretty close. I started going to a jam night, and I was playing at a jam night, getting up and doing a couple of tunes here and there. And there was a band, and their guitar player had quit, and they had a couple of gigs in the diary that they needed to finish. And they said, "Will you come and do it?" So I went and done it. The band was called Key to the Highway, which is a big Bill Brunsey song, and we were playing like bluesy rock sort of stuff, Hendrix, ZZ Top, some Rory stuff, some Elm stuff, which was more my choices. And the band sort of, in the valley sort of took off, and we were being offered gigs because they wanted to wind the band down. But we were doing these gigs and people wanted to book us all the time. So that sort of fizzled out. Then I started a band called Glass, which is Welsh for blue, Welsh blues band. And we did stuff for 7 years. That come to an abrupt end, but that's a story for another day. That'd take that's longer than the Lord of the Rings, that saga, right?
Okay.
And then, so they were the two bands, and then now I'm doing this James Oliver band thing. But I've always been one. I like to play in one band. You see people in 10 bands. I like to concentrate on one thing and just do one thing, and give one thing all my time, rather than be, in X amount of bands doing X amount of things.
I wanted to pick up on something that you just said, and that was about music scenes. And you mentioned that there's a good rock and roll and blues scene in Wales, and you also mentioned the same in my home city of Bristol. But I wanted to come on to the kind of Welsh thing, because as a Welshman with a kind of rock and roll pedigree, how much of an influence was kind of the Welsh rock scene going back to the kind of the late, sort of 70s and 80s with Dave Edmunds? You had Mickey G, you obviously had Rock Pile, you had all these groups formed. Terry Williams, the famous Welsh drummer who went on to be a key member of Dire Straits, and Durant Watkins as well. How much of a kind of influence were they?
There is incredible musicians, guitar players in Wales, right? I could reel off millions of them, right? But I mean, Rock Pile are one of my favorite bands. Edmunds, I love Mickey G. Of course, you've got a great Welsh guitar player, Graham Williams, Ray Ennis. I mean, you've got Swansea boys like Taff, Kevin Ford, Brian Breeze. I mean, there's just so many of them. Chris Buck, obviously now, modern.
Sure.
Mickey G's a big favourite. I love Edmunds. Gellant is one of my musical heroes. There's just so many. And I could just reel off local guitar players, which nobody's ever heard of, Dave Durnley, Pete Matheson, Mike Lloyd-Jones, Steve Finn. There's just so many of them, And it'd be unfair to me to start reeling off names in case I miss somebody out. Because there's so many great players in Wales that you know that you could take influence from. Never mind listening to all the other stuff.
With regard to some of those names you mentioned, and you mentioned specifically kind of that rock and roll scene at the time, going back to the 70s and the 80s, did part of you as a young musician want to kind of kickstart a new kind of Welsh rock and roll revival in some ways?
No, because there's always Welsh rock and roll bands. You know, there's loads of them, and they're all really good. And I just like playing. I'm not trying to like start a revolution or anything like that, or kick anything off. As long as I can do 5 gigs a week, I'm happy. You know.
Sure. I want to move on and talk about guitars. I want to firstly ask you how many guitars you currently own. And I believe that the Telecaster is your favorite guitar, the one you mainly use for live gigs. What makes the Telecaster so special for you, and what models do you own?
Well, I just love the twangy, cut-in sound of the Fender Telecaster. You know, most of my favorite players, Red Volker, Bill Kirchin, Albert Lee, Mick Green, you know, they all play Fender Telecasters. I just love Fender Telecasters. There's a great Welsh bass player. He's dead now, Jack Bass. And he always used to say that Leo Fender ruined his life. And I think he ruined mine as well. But guitar-wise, some people think I got too many. I don't think I got enough. But I have got over 40.
Oh, wow.
And they do take up a lot of room, and they are everywhere. But my favourite Telecaster is built by a luthier who lives in Cardiff, Dave Durnley. And it's got Joe Bard and Danny Gatton pickups in it, because Danny Gatton's another big favourite of mine. And I've got some old Fenders from the 60s. I got a 63 and a 69 Telly. Got some 60s Strats, some 50s Gibsons. I'm lucky to have some, you know, really nice gear that I enjoy playing on a daily basis. But for gigs, I like my Telecaster.
You mentioned that you own 40 guitars, and I wanted to kind of pick up on another thing. You obviously own other guitars like Gretsch, Gibsons, and so on. What for you kind of, why do you feel kind of more comfortable playing the Telecaster than, say, a Gretsch? Is it just like the weight of the object? Is it the tone? What is it kind of for you that gives you that kind of distinction, and you feel kind of more comfortable on a live stage with that particular, I suppose, brand of guitar in your hand?
I suppose because I've got Gretsch's here and there's Gibson's here and Martins and all sorts of things, and I just like the way the Telecaster feels, really, and I like the sounds. Excuse me, I like the shape. I mean, I've done gigs on Gretsch's, I've done gigs on Gibsons, but they always frighten me, because I can sit in the house, right, and I can play my Gretsch White Falcon all week, and I think, oh, I'm enjoying this. I'm going to take it on the gig. So I'll take the Telecaster, I'll take the White Falcon, I'll play one song on the White Falcon and think, oh no, I better play my Telecaster again. I don't know, I'm a creature of habit, I suppose.
I know what you're saying. Gretsch's tend to be quite big, and I've got a Gibson myself, and they're quite heavy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see what you're saying there. The Gretsch I own is quite a light one, but to be honest, James, I wouldn't even want to get my guitar out in front of you. I can play about 6 chords, and I'd feel completely out of my depth if I started playing with yourself. But yeah, I can kind of get what you're saying, and you know, certainly, obviously, guitarists are known for playing specific guitars. Like Chuck Berry always plays a Gibson, and so forth. I want to kind of come on to guitar sound. Always a difficult question to ask a musician and get a little bit technical, but how would you describe your guitar sound technique and your tone?
Clean and loud. I really like I like a clean sound. I don't really like distortion. I really like that slapback echo, you know, that 50s slapback echo. So if I got a nice clean sound with some slapback echo, I don't use reverb, I like slapback echo, I'm happy.
And you've obviously played so many different guitar styles that I want to kind of pick up a bit later in the interview. But what do you enjoy playing the most? And is there a particular style of guitar that you would like to, a genre that you'd like to experiment a little bit more with in the future?
Well, I love playing the rockabilly, the blues, and the country stuff. That's the main stuff I like to do. But I really love Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band and his, off the wall out there sort of avant-garde stuff. And in lockdown, I learned about 5 of the songs. They're on my YouTube channel, like. But I mean, it's the sort of stuff it's Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. And I know I couldn't go to a club and play it because it'd frighten people to death, But I'd like to learn more of that stuff because it's just so challenging and just so exciting to me that these, 4 guys made them records,
I love the first album they did, Zigzag Wanderer, and Raikuda on lead. Yeah, really good stuff. I wanted to come on to something else. I've been following you on your YouTube channel and obviously your Facebook group where you do live performances and so on. But there's no question you're a very versatile guitar player. He plays so many different styles, from blues to country to jazz, and also replicating famous guitarists. And just off the top of my head, people like Grady Martin and Chuck Berry. How long has it taken you to kind of master other sounds and musical styles? And do you intend to kind of bring those skills into the live act at all?
Well, I'm not very good at jazz, right? For a start. And, I've been playing since I'm 13, I'm 28. And I just keep trying to improve, and I'm trying to like make up my own style rather than, so I think if I learn to try and learn everything I like, and then I'll probably play it wrong, and then I'll try and come up with my own style, That's what I'm trying to do. I don't know if I'm doing it, but I'm having a go,
The thing I find incredible is watching the videos. You'll do a Chuck Berry number and you'll replicate Chuck's style, or another guitarist like Albert Lee doing Country Boy. And it's incredible. Like, for me, you pretty much get those guitarists, the way they play, the tone, the style, the finger action on the fretboard. To me, you get it spot on. And it's breathtaking to watch it. It's just incredible to see it. It must take so much dedication and time to kind of, watch those masters and replicate that sound.
Well, because I love it all so much. I mean, I listen to music all the time. I got like 2,500 LPs in my bedroom, and I listen to stuff all the time. And I'm always trying to find new things to listen to, rather than just go back over that same old sort of stuff,
Sure.
which is important, And I mean, YouTube is incredible. Look at all the stuff on YouTube. I mean, you can type in Grady Martin and you can see Grady Martin. He's there doing his thing, isn't he? Whereas years ago, you couldn't do that, could you? So I think that my generation are an advantage to generations gone by because we got all this YouTube and Spotify. I mean, most things are on Spotify. You can listen to anything. You haven't got to go hunting for a Johnny Orton record, so you can hear "I'm Coming Home" and "Honky Tonk Hardwood Floor" because they're on YouTube, aren't they? Or they're on Spotify.
And another thing is, if you take Blu-rays and DVDs as well, they've got masterclasses where it says, play like Albert Lee, or play like Dwayne Eddy, or these actual educational tools at hand to be able to play like some of those guitarists, even though I imagine it's very, very difficult to play as well as some of them because they're so accomplished.
Well, I mean, I love Red Volkart. He's one of my favorites. And he was, in the lockdown, he was offering Skype lessons. So I was straight on that. I had 10 lessons with Red. And I mean, I love his licks and his playing. And I hope, I think that helped me a bit. And you just got to take opportunities, if you can afford it, it's coming up to it, isn't it?
Out of interest, for somebody who's been playing a number of years and gigging, recording and so on, having kind of outside tutorage from another guitarist, what did you kind of learn from that experience? Did it kind of bring any kind of new, fresh ideas to the table for you?
Well, loads. I mean, Red is just, I don't know if you know him.
Not a lot, no.
And he's on quite a few Tom Russell records. He's on everybody's records. Played with Merle Haggard. He's just so good. There's so many of them. It's just so good, you know. It's unbelievable, and there's always something to learn, you know, no matter how good you are, I think, or how good you think you are.
I wanted to come on to the live scene because you've obviously been performing on the live music scene for a number of years now. When performing live, where do you enjoy playing the most? And where do you feel your music is most appreciated by the audience?
Well, I'll play anyway, right? I am not fussy. Any day of the week, any time, we are there, and, you know, and we'll do it. But I mean, we're lucky that, you know, we built a following over the years, and people come to see us. And I mean, you know, we have some really good gigs in Bristol. I haven't seen you at any of them, no.
Will be soon. I was the man standing in the back of the room. See, the man with the anorak at the back, next to the speaker. Yeah.
Sweden's yeah, I always go down well in Sweden. Well, you know, we've done some good gigs in London. Ireland has always been great. I'd like to go to America, but with pandemics and visas, it's very difficult. But one day I hope to go, you know.
Do you find touring outside of the UK, when you've gone to Europe, do you find the audiences are slightly different? I remember speaking to one musician on Your Take who was speaking about the difference between UK and American audiences, and saying that he preferred the American audience because he felt they appreciated musicians more, you know, that you would do something on stage and they'd appreciate that by clapping and cheering and so on. For you, do you find like the European mood is different towards kind of blues and rock and roll music?
I mean, I think that in Europe, it's like some of the places you play, you know, they don't want you to be there when you're doing a pub gig, you know. But you go and do a gig in, you know, like we went to Norway, and they were really pleased that we went to Norway, you know. And, you know, you go to the gig and they feed you and give you drinks, whatever you want, you know. And they just really appreciate you being there. You play the gig and they come up to you at the end and they thank you, you know, for coming all our way, you know, to play for them, really.
Moving on from, you know, still on kind of the subject of the live gigging scene, you've supported and performed on stage with so many fine guitarists, some of which we've already mentioned, but names such as Albert Lee and Bill Kirchin, who you mentioned, is a big inspiration for you. How did you meet and get the opportunity to play with those people? And what have you learned from kind of listening, watching, and sharing the stage with them?
Well, it's strange doing them guitar gigs because, you know, we've done gigs with like Greg Koch as well and stuff, and it's full of guitarists and they're all looking at you, waiting for you to make a mistake, you know. And I do always think, how many guitar players does it take to change a light bulb? One, and then the rest will tell you that you're playing it wrong. But it's the same with Bill and Albert. A friend of mine, Steve Elsden, sadly passed away now. He was a bit of a promoter, and he booked these bands and said, would you like to open for him? And of course, I ain't going to say no, am I?
No, not at all. You'd be stupid to, wouldn't you?
I was lucky to get and play with Bill. We played Rockabilly Funeral and we played Promised Land. And I didn't play with Albert, but we opened for Albert twice. And he was always very nice to me and very complimentary. Same with Greg Koch. We've done gigs with Gennett Watkins, you know, Crazy Carvin. Oh, there's loads. Rosie Flores. She's a really good guitar player. I've done gigs with Deke Leonard from Man, you know, playing with Deke. Crazy Carvin, they were really nice. You know, Welsh, one of the best Welsh rockabilly bands ever. Rockabilly bands then like Matchbox. Oh, there's a fair few that we've opened for and stuff.
From the live gigs, from the people you've supported and performed on stage with, we move on to recording. You released your first album a year or so back called Twang. I want you to tell us a bit about the process of writing and recording the album. And when you look back at it, are you happy with the finished album and the critical and public response to it?
Well, I don't like recording, to be honest with you. I never listen to my own music because I just don't think that's normal to sit down and put on one of your own records. Twang was a thing that happened. We were doing the James Oliver band thing and we were doing lots of oh, excuse me, we're doing lots of gigs. We better make an album. So I wrote the original songs with a friend of mine, Dawson Smith, who's from Abertillery, he lives in Leicester. He got a really good, like, sort of roadhouse blues band called Dawson Smith and the Dissenters, who were worth checking out. So me and Dawson wrote these songs in 2 days. And then we booked the studio and we recorded the album in 3 days. And it was finished then. Paul Riley mixed it. He's worked with lots of people, Rock Pile and Nick Lowe, etc., Geraint. Malcolm from the Last Music Company put the record out, which was a big success. A guy called Joe Cushley did the PR on it. He did a cracking job. Loads of reviews. I mean, we've had like 8 plays on Radio 2. We had an album of the year on some of the blues radio station things, and it done really well for us, I think. And then we done an EP.
It seems like the process was obviously fairly quickly. Yeah, a couple of days in the studios and laying down the mix, and then obviously getting it released to an audience for people to listen to. I wanted to pick up on a couple of things you said. What is it you find kind of frustrating about recording, and do you feel kind of more at home playing live than actually recording in a studio place? And also I wanted to ask you about the songs, writing lyrics. Did that come naturally, or how was that kind of writing process for you of coming up with song lyrics?
I just like the spontaneity of playing live. And then when you do something and it's done and it's a moment, and then you're in the studio and it's like, and I want to do my solos again and again and again, and then it just gets frustrating. You know what I mean? So I just sort of go in, we do it, and then if everybody thinks it's okay, that's it then. I can't be dealing with no more of that sort of thing. I just don't like recording. But I've done some sessions recently, which I've enjoyed doing. But I think it's because I'm more experienced in the studio now than I was when I made that album, because I was quite new to it all then. Sort of thing.
Interestingly, do you think maybe the old process where if you go back to kind of like the Sun recordings, incredible stuff produced by Sam Phillips, but they were pretty much done live, a lot of those recordings. Do you think that kind of old process of just kind of laying it down in the actual time and that moment suits you better than the constant stop start, like almost like being on a film set where you have to do an overdub here and you're doing a vocal here? Do you think that old recording style is better suited to James Oliver than, say, the new kind of digital way of doing things, this kind of stop start action?
Definitely. I mean, all this about spilling the microphones and all that just gets on. Listen to the chess recordings, fabulous they are. The Sun recordings are fabulous, and they position their mics, and they might have a bit of spill from the drums in the vocal mic, but it don't matter. I think that people want it to be too clean these days, and I want it to be 1955.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I kind of like. There's something very appealing about that kind of rawness, and it done in that kind of moment if it was done kind of one take. And I agree with you, kind of the chest recordings, some of them like the Bo Diddley stuff, the Chuck Berry, the Muddy Waters, they're not perfect recordings by any means, but they've got that kind of, they're raw, they're natural, and you believe that the performer is singing about that particular thing with emotion. They believe it.
I agree. I mean, I love all that stuff. I just, I think that, I just think that that's how it should be done, personally. But that's just my, I mean, there's not many overdubs on Twang. My mate Billy Williams played piano, harmonica and accordion on it. Fantastic, from Swansea, one of my favourite players to play with, And that's all really. There's not many guitar overdubs on it, if any. It's sort of as it is.
And the twang obviously relates to the twang of the guitar. Is that kind of twangy sound being a kind of influence and part of your playing? Because when we think of the twang, we can kind of relate it to people like Dwayne Eddy and Hank Marvin. Is it kind of part of your kind of, something you like to create?
I love the twangy guitar sound. more than I like the distorted guitar sound. You know, the twangy for me is the sound. That's what I like.
From the recording of the album, we come on to awards, because you won the Emerging Artist of the Year at the UK Blues Awards going back to
I did.
2020. Yeah. What was your initial reaction when you heard the news? And do you think winning the award has created new musical opportunities and allowed your music to be heard by new audiences?
Well, I was shocked because I never won nothing in my life. So I was very shocked, obviously very pleased. And I mean, I think it has helped a bit, but because we weren't gigging, we couldn't really capitalize. I have got an agent now that does some of my bookings, Mike Kelly and Moving Music. It was great, you know. Gives me some really good festivals. So it has helped. I was nominated as well 2021. I didn't win in 2021, but that don't matter. And yeah, I think it has helped, yeah.
I wanted to ask you a bit about the actual award ceremony itself, because obviously the last 2 years have been difficult with the restrictions in place with the pandemic. Was there an award ceremony, or was it kind of all just done online? How did that work at the time?
Well, it was all online, so I knew months ago that I won. And it was hard not to say nothing, right?
Keep it quiet.
I was like, yes, all the time, couldn't keep quiet about it. But no, I filmed an acceptance speech. And then I sent them a video of the band playing live, like a YouTube video. So they had Paul Jones from the blues band, the harmonica player. He was like the host, and he'd done the nominations. And then they showed my video, showed the band video. So it was all online. It's probably still on YouTube.
One thing I wanted to pick up as well on, which I've heard you, I think, say on one of your social media channels, is even though you won that kind of UK Blues Award, you say you wouldn't regard yourself necessarily as a blues player. Why did you kind of make that statement?
Well, because I'm more like rhythm and blues, R&B, rock and roll-y sort of. I mean, I love blues. I mean, it's my favorite stuff. But I've never suffered, you know. So I just feel a bit of a phony, like, sometimes. You know what I mean, don't you? It's a strange thing. I mean, I do play a bit of blues, but I wouldn't say that I am, you know, I'm definitely not the best blues guitarist, that's for sure. I say R&B, pub rock, maybe.
Sure.
You know, that's why.
Do you find, you know, now I've kind of gone on to the question, do you find as a musician, sometimes it's frustrating that people naturally label you? You have to be one thing or the other, and musicians are always categorized as he's jazz, no, she's soul. Do you feel like that kind of restricts you in any way sometimes and pigeonholing artists?
I don't worry. As long as they like it, it makes no difference what they think it is. You know, if they come to the gig, right, and they dance, and at the end they got a big smile on their face and they enjoyed it, that's all that matters to me, you know. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as they enjoy it and they come again. Because, I mean, you know, you can have a great gig, but if you don't get booked back, you don't get the people coming there. It's not a great gig, you know.
Yeah.
I don't see myself as a muso, you know, I see myself as an entertainer. That's what I'd like to be, an entertainer.
A showman.
Well, and, you know, make people, you know, just enjoy it, like, because that's what it's about for me, for people to enjoy themselves.
You've kind of already answered my next question already, fleetingly. You mentioned my question was going to be, do you have an agent? And apart from live performance and recording, whatever ways do you get your music out to the public domain?
Well, Mike does some gigs for me. I mean, I'd say I do 80% of my own bookings, right? And then I've got Mike Hellier, Moving Music, gives me some of the good festivals. And then Mickey Fennell, who is, I can't say enough good things about Mickey. He's a Swedish agent, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. He sorts all that out for me. So when people want to book me in Europe, Mickey will fix it, as he says, right? So, and I mean, I do the YouTube channel, which which is okay, you know, that I've got 17,000 subscribers now, which is good considering I don't do any video editing. I just film myself playing on my iPad and stick them on there, like. I do the YouTube thing. Social Facebook, I put videos on Facebook, you know, and put them on all the guitar groups and that, like. So that's some of the ways to get the music out there.
Yeah, one thing I think you do incredibly well, and you've mentioned it there, is you've got the YouTube channel, you've got your Facebook group where you talk about some of your favorite albums and artists.
Yeah, I do that every week.
And also you do particular songs as well. For you, is that kind of key as an artist, kind of trying to build up almost like, you know, build a fan base? Is that kind of important to you?
Well, in the grand scheme of things, right, I'm nobody, right? I'm just another guitar player in this big world full of guitar players. But if I always used to find, say I got a comment back or somebody I really admired, guitar playing wise, you know, I used to think that's great that they replied. So, you know, I try and reply to everybody, and if people message me, you know, I always try and reply. You know what I mean? And if someone asks a question, I always try and answer the question, you know. Because, and you know, if people come to the gig and I know them, I make the effort to go and talk to them, even if I had to forget their names. Like I had to call them Butt, see, but I'm not going to forget yours because you've got the same name as me.
Do you find after a gig, when you meet and mingle with some of the people at the performance, some of the fans, when they make comments about your guitar playing, your songs, how does that kind of rub off on you? That's obviously got to be, you know, confidence booster, and it must be really nice.
I just feel a bit embarrassed because, you know, they just make comments about your guitar playing, and I always wondered to myself, right? I've always thought this now. Do they say the same things to every band every week? That's what I've always wondered, you know. But it's really nice, you know, and I appreciate the comments. But you know, you mustn't let it go to your head and that, like, because there's no good being a big head, man.
Just stay humble.
Well, you've got to be tidy, haven't you? Treat others how you'd like to be treated.
Yeah, I think that's a nice answer.
True.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing you say. You say, you know, you don't want to, you know, let these things kind of go over your head. Do you ever think about fame? Is that something that kind of appeals to you? Obviously, as musicians, you can become very famous. Is that something that appeals, or is that something that kind of puts you off the music business in any way?
I just want to play enough gigs to make a living, right? I'm not worried where they are, you know, who they to, whether it's to, you know, we've done gigs to 1,000 people and we've done gigs to 2 people. That's just how it goes. As long as I can play, and I haven't got to get a day job, right? That's me happy. I'm not interested in cars and houses. I'm interested in having more guitars, mind. I would like a 50 black card, you know, but I'm not interested in fame or nothing. I mean, I've been very lucky to meet the people I've met, you know, and I've been very lucky to, you know, have some nice opportunities, you know, to do stuff. And I've been lucky that I've met all my living guitar heroes bar one, which is Red, but I've been on Skype with him loads of times, so I don't know if that counts. I mean, when favorite, like John French on the Magic Band, Beef-Heart's drummer, you know, he shares my videos regular and stuff like that. You know, that's it. That's for me. That's, you know, great. I love it. Like, I just love playing. I'm not interested in fame. You know,
nice to hear that for you, the love of the instrument, the love of music and playing is what it means to you the most. But I wanted to talk about the future. What is kind of your musical plans and aspirations for the future, and where do you see yourself, James Oliver, in say another 10 years time?
Well, I'm not exactly a pin-up, am I? You know what I mean? I'm going bald. I got false teeth. I got glasses. So where would I see? As long as I can keep playing, I would like to do, right, the most gigs I've ever done in a year is 272, right?
Oh wow.
That's what I managed to do in a year. I'd like to do 364 gigs. That's like my goal, is to play every day bar Christmas Day. But of course, that's getting increasingly difficult with places shutting and pandemics and whatnot. But that's my dream, is to do 364 gigs in a year.
Is the plan as well, you mentioned previously about going stateside and playing music over there as well?
But I'm a bit worried about that, because what do they want to listen to me play the stuff for when they got the real people over there doing it, you know? That's sort of my thing about going to America. But you know, I just want to make, I mean, I've just finished a new record of guitar instrumentals with special guests, which I'm really pleased with. It's only covers, Shadow stuff, Link Ray stuff, Dick Dale stuff, The Ventures, Bill Haley instrumental, Red Volcart's on it, Bill Kirchen's on it, Glenn Watkins is on it, Billy Bremner from Rockpile, a couple of guys from Arbor are on it, some of the session guys, you know, who played on like Fernando and Dancing Queen and that. And I'm really happy with it. I just want to keep making records and just just try and keep a band together for more than a month, because I do go through the players, you know.
Why do you think you go through the players out of interest?
Because I do too many gigs, apparently.
Perfectionist as well, maybe?
No, definitely not a perfectionist. Christ almighty. Have you heard me sing? I was a perfectionist. I think, but no, I don't know. I think I just do too many gigs and I just burn them out.
When can we expect to listen to the new album, and when is it likely to be released?
Well, next year at some point. So at the moment, right, we're just getting like, because we got all these special guests on it, and I recorded it in Sweden, and then of course, you know, Bill is doing his part. He's in Texas. You know, Red's in Virginia. Billy Bremner's in Sweden. Gallant is in London. Everyone is busy. You know, we're all gigging all the time. So it's a case of just getting everybody together. They've had all their parts emailed. It's a case of having them email back, mixing it, and then Mickey out in Sweden will release it, and we'll do a bit of a PR thing on it, and we'll just see how it goes. And you know, I've got a target in my head of how many I'd like to sell, and if we reach our target, great. And if we don't, never mind. We'll try again next time.
Throughout this kind of conversation, it's pretty much been led about your love of music, your career in music, and how from childhood you went from learning guitar to becoming a professional musician. And I kind of wanted to switch it around a little bit towards the end of the interview and ask you, outside of music, what other interests and passions do you have? And do you ever see yourself doing anything else outside of music?
Well, I mean, what else do I like? I collect records. I listen to records. I play the guitar. I eat too much. I mean, I like watching telly, you know. I like Coronation Street and Casualty. You know, I like watching telly, I suppose. I mean, I don't really like anything else other than music, really. I mean, I don't watch any sports. I don't mind the darts, mind. But no, really. I don't know what else I could do. Some people reckon stand-up comedy, but I don't know. Somebody called me the Tommy Cooper of the Telecaster the other week, which I thought was good. I like that.
That's quite a good nickname. Yeah, I like that.
Malcolm from Tenby Blues Festival. I mean, you know, I like to go and visit my mates, you know. Whatever, normal things. I don't play on the PlayStation. I haven't got a PlayStation or nothing.
I kind of feel your passion, because like, if I kind of relate your love of music, I'd say my key passions in life are just cinema and music. Yeah. That's kind of all I live for, basically.
Yeah.
But
I mean, not so much cinema, but yeah, I'm the same.
But when we come back to the music, is there kind of, you know, with regard to the future, is there anything you kind of like to focus more at that you kind of think you need more practice in, or you don't feel so comfortable in, whether it's like songwriting, maybe it's kind of a different style of guitar? Is there something like you'd like to experiment more with and kind of look to focus on more so in the future with your music?
I just want to keep moving forward, you know, and improving as a guitar player. Really, that's what I want to do. Just keep improving, keep gigging, keep adding to the repertoire. You know, I've got plenty more. I mean, I write songs all the time. I mean, some of them get used, some of them are good, some of them are not very good, you know. So, I mean, most of my songs are like witty. Like, the only thing I lack is a Cadillac. You know, that's one of my originals, The Chicken and the Duck. Because I like to write, I think that there's 4 points of great songs, and that's cars, killing, love, and animals. You listen to all the great songs, and they're about one of them four things. So that's like my, I don't know how to explain it, but they are my four subjects of choice.
There was one song that you wrote and performed on the Twang album that I really liked because it had shades of kind of the 1950s, kind of what we feel the 50s represents, again with like chasing girls, cars, and so on. And that's American Cars, which kind of feels a little bit of a tip to people like Eddie Cochran and Chuck Berry again.
Three people wrote that.
Yeah, I love that song. A really good lyrics in that one.
Dawson wrote the first verse. I wrote the second verse. And Malcolm Corley from Tenby Blues Festival organizer, who called me Tommy with the Telecaster, he wrote the third verse. But it's a true story because it's like American Cars, they don't work no more. I live in Blackwood, you live in Bristol. How many Cadillacs have you seen this week? Because I haven't seen any. And I'm sure you haven't seen any.
I don't think I've seen any in the last decade.
There we are, look.
Yeah.
Unless you go down the King Billy and Warmley when they have an hot rod meet on a Tuesday, you might see a couple there then. But no, so I like to write songs about real things. Like the only thing I lack is a Cadillac, theoretically, because I like rock and roll. And I got everything else. I got the guitars and the shirts. I haven't got much in anymore. But you know what I mean?
It's quite interesting. My final kind of observation is you mentioned about American fashion, and that's something you obviously wear on stage with the American shirts, which are kind of almost like a rockabilly feel, and the bootlace ties. Tell us a little bit about the attire. Are you kind of interested in that kind of fashion as well?
Well, I mean, if you see me, on a normal day, I just wear, a t-shirt and jeans or tracks or whatever. But I just think the band should always look smart on stage. I like the Western shirts, the bootlace ties, trousers, shoes, and a suit jacket, because I think a band should always look smart on stage, like you mean business, you shouldn't. I can't stand seeing bands coming on the stage in shorts and t-shirts and all that, I think a band should look tidy, and look smart, like, because, you look at the photo of Buddy Holly, right? Did you ever see Buddy Holly on stage without the suit? Nope. Did you ever see Eddie Cochran without the, dress? They all dress smart. Even Howlin' Wolf always wore a suit. Muddy Waters always wore a suit. Nice suits as well. Little Walter always wore a suit. Because, you should look good when you play. You should look like you want to be there, and you should look like, you made the effort. And
the Beatles were all immaculately dressed, weren't they? They all wearing the same suits and the winkle picker shoes. Yeah, as part of the image, part of the brand, I guess. Yeah.
I agree.
I wanted to move on to the final set of questions that we kind of ask all our guests. These quick fire questions, find out things you like, things you don't like, and kind of find out your hobbies outside of your music as well, which we've kind of briefly spoken about. So here we are, James Oliver. These are the questions we've asked, I think, all 20 of our guests so far on Your Take.
Okay.
So number one, and I think I know what you're going to say for this one, but what is your favorite pastime?
Playing the guitar.
I knew that one was coming. Next one, what would you say, moving on to cinema, is your favorite film and why?
Favorite film? Oh, Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Academy Award.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Even though it's long and I got no attention span, right? It is brilliant. And and when Elvis is on there dancing with him, and it's just fantastic. It is.
Yeah, very good soundtrack as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, from cinema to books to novels, who's your favorite novelist, if you have one?
No, but I used to like the Roald Dahl books when I was a kid. Can I say that?
Yeah, Roald Dahl. I used to love Roald Dahl as well. Yeah, classics.
And he was Welsh.
If you could have had a different profession, what would it have been outside of music?
A doctor.
Who in life would you say has been your greatest inspiration?
Oh, my parents, innit?
Moving on to newspapers, do you read one? And if so, which one?
None of them.
Stay away from the news, yeah?
I don't watch on the telly.
Excuse me.
I don't read the newspaper.
Move on to the newspapers, to food. You said you do like your food. You like eating.
Well, look at me.
I didn't say it for that reason.
I know. It doesn't take to work out, man.
I was going to ask, what is your favorite food? And are you a cook?
Fish and chips. I like. And even though my name is James Oliver, right, and people that call me Jamie after that idiot not internet chef, that idiot celebrity chef who I don't like, right? I can't cook nothing.
No.
I can do spaghetti hoops on toast.
Okay. Okay, so from fish and chip snacks to cultural icon, who would you say is your favorite cultural icon?
Leo Fender.
What next, and you can say this, what is your favorite curse word and why?
Oh, fuck up. Because it's a more insulting way to tell someone they need to shut up. Innit? Or I just say, fuck up, man. Bit of Welsh there, you know.
Next one, what would you say is your favorite holiday place or destination?
Tenby.
Tenby. What is it about Tenby you like?
I just like Tenby. It's nice.
What would you say is your greatest achievement to date?
Sustaining a career playing the guitar.
Lovely answer. And we move on to the final one. How do you wish to be remembered, James Oliver?
Just as a decent person, you know, nice enough. Like,
I think that's a nice way to finish. Thanks a lot for taking part in Your Take. It's been very much
appreciate it.
Music-led, a lot of our interviews, and you join a great host of names that we've had on Your Take, from David Knopfler to the songwriter Martin Page, and we've got some future ones lined up. But it's been really interesting to follow your story, to see you play, and this incredible playing. It really is. And yeah, I wish you continued success on your musical journey. But before we end and wrap up, I wanted you just to tell us a bit more where we can find out more information and see the James Oliver Band.
Right, we got the website, www.jamesoliverband.co.uk. We got the Facebook page, James Oliver Band. Instagram, James Oliver 1992. YouTube, James Oliver Guitar. And that's about it. I don't do Twitter. I can't get my head around Twitter. But all the other ones, right, we're on there. And I post regular. And
since the restrictions are starting to, the restrictions have started to ease in terms of live gigs, how have you found going back to the kind of gigging circuit? Has it been kind of regular bookings?
Well, we've been doing 5+ a week since May. The only time we had off is when I caught COVID. Some of the gigs have been absolutely rammed. Never seen anything like it. Some of the gigs that used to be rammed are not so rammed, and it's just been up and down. You know, people are coming to see us who haven't seen us for 2 years. So it's a bit of a novelty at the moment, isn't it?
Once again, I want to end thanking you for your time today. Thank you for being a guest on Your Take. Sorry, I didn't catch you there.
I'm getting up early.
Yeah, you said, I should just explain to the viewers and the listeners, you were doing a gig last night. Just give us a little bit of a recount of the gig, because you drove all the way to the gig. Performed.
Well, we've done 5 gigs this past week now. Started Wednesday, finished yesterday. And we done a gig Saturday in Hartlepool, right? But it was snowing terrible, so it took 7 hours to get there. Done the gig. We drove back 6 hours, done the gig last night. It wasn't far last night, from only half hour. Excuse me. But it just, all this driving's hard work.
So what time did you get in then?
I wasn't late last night, about 1.
Okay.
But I wasn't the world.
Thanks once again for being a guest. And yeah, I wish you all the very best in your personal life and your musical life in the future.
Thank you very much.